Hello, everyone. We are going to start in a few minutes. I'm just letting everyone in the room. Hello, everyone. Bom dia. Thank you. Thank you all for being here. I'm Bruna Santos. I'm very pleased to welcome all of you in this important session that marks the first in a series of three high-level dialogues on sustainable agriculture in Latin America, organized in the lead up of to COP30 in Belém, in Brazil, in November this year. And this series will focus on three interconnected pillars. Today is about sustainable ranching. Then we will host another one on food chains traceability. And the third and last one is strategies to curb deforestation. This is going to all lead to COP30, to an event in Belém, where we will present the papers that will result out of this roundtables. This initiative is a result of a partnership between Embrapa, Brazil's leading agricultural research institution, and the Inter-American Dialogue, aimed at convening stakeholders, experts like you, aligning priorities and generating concrete proposals in the context of COP30. I'm especially grateful to our corporate members and partners in this initiative, Marfrig and Arcos Dorados, for their engagement in this effort, and to WWF and Embrapa as invaluable technical contributors to this important event. The global meat market across all meat types was valued in approximately 1.3 trillion in 2024. And it underscores both the scale and the opportunities if changes are made in this sector. And we believe that in the region, the transition towards a low carbon economy that will not succeed if we don't have the active involvement of all sectors, and obviously of the major players in the private sector, the agribusiness, the food companies, retailers, investors. They all play a very important role in reshaping supply chains and aligning the incentives. And that's why this initiative makes us so happy, because we were able to bring important players and thinkers of this market. In this roundtable today, we will explore how livestock systems can reduce environmental impact while remaining not only competitive, but also inclusive. And the conversation will address a number of issues, from emission reduction to land use to producer incentives and collaboration across the sectors and the rural communities. As I said, the insights will directly feed into the policy paper that we are writing and that will be launched at Casa Dialogo, our beloved house in Belém during COP30. If anyone else here is interested in learning more about it, you can chat with me later or with Julia, my colleague, who is also in this conversation today. And this COP30 is dubbed the Implementation COP, and we'll spotlight several themes that have direct relevance to the issues that we are going to discuss that today. Although this conversation is not to produce final decisions, I have to tell you this roundtable will be recorded, will be distributed later for other people to watch. And the insights will also benefit the production of this paper that will be written by not only me, but also our partner who is here in this call, Alexandre Varela from Embrapa, to whom I'm very grateful for the partnership in this initiative. I want to also thank the presence of Brazil's agriculture attaché, Ana Viana, here in this call. Thank you, Ana, for being with us. We have a very qualified group here. Let me introduce the discussants today to all of you. To begin today's discussion, we will first hear from Alexandre Bernert, who is a researcher at Embrapa, who will present his insights and scientific foundation for sustainable livestock practices. Next is speaking about the private sector and the commitments in ESG practices. We will hear from Gabriel Serber, the Vice President of Social Impact and Sustainable Development at Arcos Dorados. On the supply side, we are joined here by Leonel Almeida, Sustainability Management Manager at Marfrig, one of the most relevant players in this space, Brazilian companies in this space, whose work reflects a real movement towards sustainable transformation in the sector. And finally, we will hear from Edgar Oliveira of WWF, Director of Conservation and Restoration at WWF Brazil, who will share his perspective and how to align agricultural productivity and biodiversity protection. I would also like to thank again Alexandre Varela, who's here from Embrapa, who's Embrapa's representative and coordinator of LabX North America, key partner in this initiative and in building institutional bridges between Brazil and the United States. So over to you, Alexandre Bernert, and thank you again for being here with us.
Thank you, Bruna. Good morning or good afternoon to everyone. Well, we have only a few minutes to discuss this important theme, but I want to say on behalf of Embrapa that we are here to reaffirm Embrapa's commitment to enrich the discussion on sustainable livestock using science-based arguments. And that's my main objective today in the next 10 minutes, to present some new data that our research generated and already published. First, to put in the Brazilian context, this is the recent BTR report, the Biennial Transparency Report, published on December 2024. And this information shows or highlights the importance of agriculture to the Brazilian emissions. In 2022, agriculture emissions were or represented 30% of the Brazilian total emissions. So that's why improving livestock production system is very important for us to achieve our NDCs and all our targets. And we have the largest concept is that efficiency in the livestock production systems reduces emission intensity. And intensity is the emission related or emitted, the gas is emitted to produce some amount of product. It can be meat or milk. And we only achieve these efficiencies through the adoption of technologies, different technologies for different production systems. In general, and in a didactic way, we separate the technological pillars to reach a favorable carbon balance in three pillars. The first one is the rumen fermentation manipulation through additives, use of grains, concentrates in feedlots, improved forages with better digestibility. This is one point. I will share just two examples of this one. The central pillar here, the pillar 2, is the one that increases production and efficiency. And by doing that also helps a lot the efficient use of land and the reduction of pressure to explore new land. We have a lot of area available in Brazil to improve productivity without exploring forest areas. And to achieve these, we have plant and animal breeding programs. We have several in Brazil. All the nutritional and reproduction and health strategies and technologies and health, including the One Health approach, also considering animal welfare. And it's very important, the management of the production system to be really efficient. The third pillar, especially for the tropical production areas, including Brazil, is to broaden the carbon removal and compensation, because we have limited room to avoid emissions, but we can compensate a lot, especially in the carbon sequestration in soils and through the integrated systems, crop, livestock, and forest, that also accumulates a lot of carbon in the trees' trunks. And I have some data. I will share them very briefly, but I can share also the presentation later, and you can go deeper in those articles. We have a lot of, we have a lot of publications. Embrapa, as a team, we always seek to publish our results in very good and recognized international papers, mainly in English, to reach the international communities, both scientific and policy makers, etc. And I just brought a few samples of these publications. This is one that is related to the consortium between grasses and for different forages, grasses and legumes. We have them together in consortium, and these consortium have the potential to reduce emission intensity in 23%. This was measured here at Embrapa Southeastern Livestock Research Center for some years and published it in, I think this one is 2023. Another one that was done with our collaboration with another, this one is Brachiara grass and pigeon pea legume. There's another one, or several ones, but this one is already published into 2024 with, what is the name, is peanut. The legume was peanut with another grass that it was, I think it was a kind of, this one is with a tifton, I imagine, because they have the same shape. And again, the consortium had presented the potential to reduce 19% the emission intensity. So the numbers are more or less aligned, 23 and 19%. And this is mainly due to the effect of the legume secondary compounds, as tannin, for example, directly in the rumen to reduce methanogenesis, and also because these legumes bring better nutritional quality in general for the diet, for the ingesta, and this also contributes to bigger or larger weight gain. And so we can dilute emissions with bigger weight gain, and also directly affecting methanogenesis. So here's pillar 1 and pillar 2. The integrated system, the crop, livestock, forest, the systems happen in the same time, in the same area, during all the year, all the time. And we call them multifunctional systems. And once you increase the complexity of these production systems, you also increase the multifunctionality. And we are starting to explore this, and carbon balance is one of the aspects of this complexity. And we need a holistic view and a comprehensive approach to understand these multifunctional systems. For example, the carbon removed or removed to the soil in depth, until 1 meter depth, it is different in different production systems, and especially in the deeper layers, the contribution of the roots from the forest component, the trees, is larger. And also a number that if we only measure until 0 to 30 centimeters deep, we only represent 50% of the total carbon until 1 meter. So this is brand new, published in last 2024, that explores the potential of compensation of emissions with carbon removal in the soils of integrated systems. These ones presents the trade-offs. It's not necessarily a win-win-win situation all the time. Once we use the integrated systems, we have the shade in the system that's very good for the animal welfare, but it's not very good for the production of the grass or the maize that you plant in between trees. So we can lose some weight gain per hectare, but we also gain maize silage production and timber production per hectare. So there are some trade-offs. We don't have a lot of other research published already with these trade-offs, but this is a sign of what we expect. This one is another one that shows that each tree removes per year 64 kilos of CO2 equivalent, and in the end of all the calculations, from 250 and 350 trees, there is very low density. We can compensate emissions of 12 steers per hectare. That is a lot. And another way to express this is if we consider only the carbon in the trunks of the trees, in our production systems here, that we only had 88 trees per hectare in these systems. These trees were enough to compensate 77% of all the methane emitted, that is the main gas in the system. So by saying that, I just want to highlight that we, in general, need 25 trees per steer and 42 trees per dairy cow to fully compensate the emissions, and that we must communicate with society all these results that we achieve, and that's one of the reasons that we are here in this meeting today. And that's all. I'll be happy to participate in this discussion later. And I go back to Bruna. Thank you.
Really nice, Alexandre, and I'm really impressed. You hit the mark, exact 10 minutes. I'm really, really impressed. You raised the bar here. Over to you, Gabriel.
Thank you very much, Bruna. Alex, fantastic introduction, because I think we all need to be very happy with this, type of discussions, because we are all part of the solution. So when the scientists talk about, different things that the private sector is already working and partnering with, I think that's where the powerful alliances and partnerships become so strategic. So very, very quickly, Arcos Dorados is the largest franchisee of McDonald's Corporation. There are some McDonald's folks in the call today as well, Pete Garwood from the corporation. And we own and operate the restaurants in Latin America from Mexico down to Argentina. Specifically in Brazil, we have more than 1,500 restaurants. So it's a big footprint. And of course, like I said before, and Alex very well explained the technical parts of it, we are part of the solution along with WWF, Embrapa, Marfrig, and all of the folks that are participating here. So I just wanted to, very quickly explain to you that this is not something that McDonald's and Arcos Dorados are doing for a short period of time. This began more than 10 years ago when McDonald's initially signed the commitment on forests in 2015. That led to a series of different programs and policies that were implemented and are currently active globally. For instance, the deforestation-free beef sourcing policy that is active since 2018. And this is a very strict policy that Arcos Dorados deploys in Argentina, in Brazil, and also in Paraguay through other companies here, that has very strict controls. And some of the solutions that Alex mentioned are also being considered and being deployed through this deforestation policy. Like, for instance, Alexander talked about feeding. We are working with Marfrig in the feeding components on how to reduce methane. We are also working on rotational grazing along with Marfrig. We're also working, of course, in the deforestation protection of the different territories in biomes. So I think it's a very good connection, Bruna, here, what you build in showing how each participant has its own responsibilities along the chain. And, the policy that we have in place for Brazil is very strict. We use technology, satellite technology, to monitor the conditions of the forests in Brazil. Our policy is very strict. It allows for zero deforestation for beef sourcing, and we use a cutoff date for the Cerrado region from 2018. For the Amazon biome, is 2009. So you can see it's even more stricter, right? So, our policy is very clear as to what are the items that are forbidden and prohibited from entering the McDonald's supply chain. It's very clear, specific to IBAMA embargoes, conservation units, forced labor, indigenous lands, and we monitor all of these characteristics from our supply on a monthly basis through AgroTools, an ag tech company based out of Sao Paulo. And we get monthly reports as to how the ranchers and producers are protecting their lands and how they're producing their heads of cattle that then go to Marfrig. So I want to give you an idea of the size or the dimensions of the number of hectares that we are looking at, the numbers of farms that we are monitoring, and finally the numbers of heads of cattle that are part of this program. So last year, looking at all of the sourcing for Arcos Dorados in Latin America, we monitored more than 44 million hectares in Argentina, in Brazil, and Paraguay. This is a gigantic territory. It's for you to have an idea, Spain is 50 million hectares. So we're looking at a size very comparable to the dimensions of the Kingdom of Spain, and that we all know. And these 44 million hectares, inside of them, there are more than 18,000 farms that we monitor on a yearly basis for deforestation and no deforestation whatsoever, no IBAMA embargoes, no indigenous land intersection, no forced labor. And within those 18,000 farms, we follow more than 5 million heads of cattle every year that then are produced by the producers and end up in the Marfrig supply chain. Then they end up in the McDonald's restaurants. So part of what we do in conjunction with WWF, Embrapa, Marfrig, McDonald's itself, is looking for how the private sector, in partnership with the third sector and the scientific community, we can be part of the solution. And there are programs in place like what I just explained, the implementation of the deforestation policy. And there are other programs that are also being developed and managed as we speak, which are about the recovery of the biodiversity in some of the biomes where Arcos Dorados sources beef. For instance, Pantanal. So Pantanal and Cerrado, those are the main regions where we source beef in Brazil, right? In Gran Chaco in Argentina. So you can see here a very, very nice connection, Bruna and all of the participants here, about how the different participants along the chain have their own responsibilities. So I think Alex presented very clear points as to what are the solutions that are available: feeding, planting trees. This number, Alex, as you presented, 25 trees per steer. I think it's very clear as to what needs to happen and where this needs to happen. So I found that very interesting here. So as you know, as the volume of cattle moves through the chain, each one of us has own participation. So I think that I have 2 more minutes left, Bruna, and instead of continue talking, I think it's interesting to see how Marfrig carries on with this work. We've heard from the scientific world. We know what the private sector is doing. And now you can see how the cattle moves through the chain and we get to the supplier, which is Marfrig. And now I believe that, my very good friend Lionel will be able to share how these 3 worlds connect. And Edgar, of course, will round up with the third sector, which is obviously a huge participant in these solutions. And Edgar, we're very happy to be with you in the upcoming trip in August to visit Pantanal. So I leave the team with Lionel. Thank you very much, and we stay here for questions afterwards.
Over to you, Lionel. Thank you. Thank you, Gabriel.
Okay. Thank you, Gabriel, again, and Bruno as well. So I want to speak here about a subject that is both urgent and transformative, if you can say this. That is sustainable ranching. So it's a topic that is deeply connected, not just with our company's purpose, but as with the commitments together with our customers, as Gabriel mentioned before. So I speak from the perspective of someone who works at Marfrig, one of the world's largest beef producers, as Bruna mentioned before, and we are headquartered in Brazil. Brazil is a country with an extraordinary heritage, a vast livestock sector, and from our perspective, a dual role in the global food security and climate stability. So it's Brazil is not only a major food supplier, but is also home of some of the planet's most critical biomes, as again, Gabriel mentioned previously, Amazon, Cerrado, and Pantanal. So this dual role to be a player in the global climate and the food system brings with a complex challenge, but also a powerful opportunity as well to work between food production and the environmental responsibility. And is exactly the challenge to be and to produce as a sustainable ranks. So, as Gabriel mentioned before, I would like to tell you how we are working in practice to transform this challenge into concrete results through our experience based in our program that's called Verde Mais program. But let me start with some context. Brazil holds the largest commercial cattle herd on the planet, and at the same time, more than 60% of our national territory is still covered by native vegetation. It's some official data from MAP Biomas and from other research institutions that we have. So we are home of the Amazon, Cerrado, Pantanal, which are biomes that are not only rich in biodiversity, but also essential to the global climate balance. That means that we face this dual responsibility to produce efficiently and to protect the ecosystem that are affected, that can affect the entire planet. And the key to meeting this challenge for our perspective is moving away from the expansion through deforestation and toward sustainable intensification, as Alexandre Berndt mentioned before. So producing more on existing land, using better the practices that we have, and using smarter technologies. To do this, in 2020, we launched the Verde Mais program. That is our platform to promoting sustainable livestock production at scale. This is one word that probably we'll talk a lot here. How we can make this balance between production and conservation, but in scale at the same time. So with the program, the goal was to go beyond monitoring our direct supply and bring real solutions in terms of the all beef supply chain, including the indirect suppliers, who are the responsible to breeding the calves at the initial moment and sold them up to the end of the chain, that is the finishing farms. So with this, until recently, this indirect segment was a blind spot in the beef supply chain. That was no data, no enough transparency, no incentives for sustainability. So instead of waiting for a perfect solution, we try to build one together with a lot of partners, as those that are part of this panel today. So with this, we invested a lot in sustainability programs and long-term commitment to restructure this beef supply chain in a way that we can integrate environmental protection, productivity, and inclusion. So today, Brazil already has the capacity to double the beef productivity without clearing a single new hectare of forest. We are talking about practice. Again, I'm repeating some items that Alexandre and Gabriel mentioned before. But if you are talking about practices that we have in practice, like integrated crop, livestock, forest systems, rotational grazing, pasture recovery, strategic supplementation, the additives, as Alexandre and Gabriel mentioned previously, genetic improvements, and all of this with satellite monitoring of land use and cattle production. So here at Marfrig, we already monitor our direct suppliers since 2015 in all of the country using satellite imagery, geo-reference data, and social environmental criteria. And with Marfrig Verde Mais, we have expanded this capacity to the indirect supplier as well. Our targets is up to the end of this year, we achieve 100% of all of the supply chain that we have monitored and under some sustainability protocols that we have. So these suppliers are evaluated against deforestation, embargoed areas, as Gabriel mentioned before, indigenous territory and protected lands, and no forced labor in Brazil as well. Nowadays, we already geo-referenced the more than 35,000 producers, direct and indirect, and this number is growing. This work is unprecedented in the industry, and it's happening on the ground, not just in the policy paper or some information to PR, yeah, but it's something that we are doing straight together with the producer as well. So nowadays we live in a world where transparency is no longer optional. Consumers want to know where their food are coming from. They want guarantees that wasn't linked to deforestation or forced labor or something like related to climate change. And sustainable ranching is not good just for the planet. It's good business as well. So when we are promoting this practice, we are promoting conditions for the producer to bring them more incomes, to be more productive, and at the same time keeping the production increasing in their farm as well. Let me say something about other sustainable pillar for us, that is how we can help the producer to do this, is a technical assistance and the inclusion as well. So for us, these two situations, promote, help them with technical support, is something that is part of the business. And in these years, with the experience that we have achieved, is something that they demands a lot. Yeah. So beyond monitoring, we provide this technical support and training for these ranchers, and we have built a network of technicians and partnered, for example, with Embrapa's protocol to disseminate this best agricultural practice, from pasture recovery to rotational grazing, to improve the animal welfare and nutrition conditions of these animals as well. We also are mapping the female leadership and social indicators in the field, recognizing that sustainability is also about equity and opportunity. Through this program, we re-included more than 4,000 producers in our supply chain, because they received this technical support to correct their non-conformities against our social environmental commitments. And another important thing to highlight here, without expanding into the native vegetation. But these mentioned tools reduce greenhouse gas emission, increase land efficiency, improve animal welfare, but technology and technical support alone is not enough. Sustainability is also about people and about enabling conditions to them. Now, let me be clear about this. Knowing where the problems are is not enough. Producers, especially small and medium ranchers, need support to this transition. So implementing sustainable practices at a scale, again, I'm reinforcing at a scale, depends on one critical factor, that is the access to finance. Most cattle ranchers in Brazil are small or medium. Yeah, many of them want to adopt best practice, but they can't afford the upfront costs. So independently if this is about pasture, about water system, about improving genetics to compliance with environmental requirements, these transformations requires investments. So that's why credit, especially green and inclusive finance, is essential. We need public and private financial institutions to help de-risk sustainability. We need blended finance models, long-term credit lines, and low carbon-based incentives. Yeah. So we promote these things, but we are aware that demands finance to pay for this expansion. But so the point that I'm finalizing here is to say, Verde Mais program nowadays, even with this challenge, is not a pilot; it's a reality. It is the largest private initiative of its kind in the beef industry, and a demonstration that we can move from commitment to concrete transformation. And again, in scale, this journey is complex, we know, but we are proving that it's possible to monitor the full supply chain. It's possible to support producers with finance and knowledge. And it is possible to protect forest while increasing productivity. At Marfrig, sustainability is not a PR strategy; it's a business strategy, as we show in other opportunities in with some slides that we have. But it's again, because the world today, productivity without conservation is short-sighted, and conservation without inclusion is unsustainable. We believe in a sustainable ranching, not just as a concept, but as a path forward. And with Verde Mais, we are walking that path, one partnership, one farm, one producer at a time. So we are moving forward. And to conclude, I want to leave you with one key message. Productivity and conservation are not contradictory. They are complementary. No production system in any part of the world can succeed in the long term if it destroys the very ecosystem on which it depends. So this is the main message. And again, the results that we are achieving here, covering And having the strong partnership with these guys that are here, Alexandre, Gabriel, and other, is something that is the best pathway to make this possible at scale. So thank you very much for your time, and we are totally available for some questions if you have.
Excellent, Leonel. Thank you so much for your remarks. Edgar, over to you, and thanks again for being here.
Thanks, Bruno. Thanks for the invitation. Really nice to be here, like among colleagues and partners that we are working together in this challenging but exciting supply chain. That's the beef supply chain in Brazil. And I think it's really great to see like the difference between this panel and maybe some panels some years ago, where we are already talking about implementation, where like the maturity on the solutions or the technical solutions available and so on. So I think that is really shows that we are moving forward to have a path that is still in front of us, but we know what needs to be done. So I would like feel that the previous collaboration from the other panelists really aligned to what I'm going to say, but I will try to bring like a broader perspective, not very new, but I think it's important to put this like in a broader perspective where the cattle ranching is in Brazil and why this is important to deal with it, and some solutions that we are thinking that are already being tested and implemented by some of the colleagues here. So first of all, is like if you think about the cattle ranching in Brazil, the land use, like a cattle ranch is the biggest land use in Brazil, 160 million hectares of pastures, according to Mapbiomas in 2023, and sixth one is for agriculture. And if you take the sixth one for agriculture, 45 is for soy. So I think it is important to have this sense about like how much area have devoted for pasture. And also consider that the pasture land in Brazil has a very important role in terms of land use puzzle. I think that it plays a very important role in terms of avoiding expansion of native vegetation and improving the land use puzzle in Brazil to accommodate everything that we need to produce and even what they expect in the future to be produced. I think that all the researchers already said that Brazil has a condition that can keep growing its production without like cutting any other tree. It's already feasible to be done that. No need for information on that. But just to give a sense of numbers, and also like if you consider that from 61 million hectares of agriculture, 45 is for soy, just to give a sense also of land use here in Brazil. And so it's a very important topic to discuss about cattle ranching. And I feel that maybe one element that is very important that sometimes we got lose in the narrative sometimes is that it's not just one system in Brazil, cattle production system. Like we do have like a variety of systems that go like a high efficiency systems, as Alexandre was describing, where like a low emission, high productivity, high yields, like a lot of efficiency that is great, is very important because it highlights that we don't have a technical barrier to improve our cattle production. The technology is there. We know what needs to be done to improve the production system. But at the same time that you have like the high level production, the high quality efficiency production, we do have the worst. We do have like less than one animal per hectare production, a lot of degraded pastures. We'll talk a little bit more on degraded pastures soon, but we still have systems in place in Brazil that doesn't reflect the potential and the capacity that Brazilian cattle ranching has in terms of development. And also considering the role that sometimes the cattle ranching has in terms of being the front in terms of deforestation and conversion, like to be used not very much like also as a production system, but like validate land grabbing, land speculation, or other sources of illegality. The cattle ranching, unfortunately, like for the characteristics of the production, in many situations plays this role of being the one that is in the front of the deforestation and conversion. And so this is important to us to recognize these different systems, because separate and segregate what is good, what is better from what is worse is important in terms of how to tackle the problem. Because sometimes we see people, no, our cattle production is the best in the world because we have the system, low carbon agriculture, and so on. But at the same time, we're going to see people say, no, the cattle ranching system in Brazil is the worst. It's causing deforestation. Is a huge source of GHG emissions and so on. And they are all realities. So how we make sure that we enforces the good ones, the good producers, and stop the worst ones, I think that is the best. And nowadays, with the challenge that we have, that is not really possible. There is an effort to do that, to separate which ones are the good, which ones are the worst. At some point, or most of the suppliers nowadays are accepting all of them can came to the same supply chain at some point. So this is one of the topics that I feel that is important. So when you look for this worst, in terms of degraded pastures that we have, I think that the names varies a lot, but if you there are numbers about 40 million hectares of highly degraded pastures in Brazil. It varies depending on the source that you have, but there is a issue on degraded pastures. Is a source of emission, a higher emission because of degradation, and also a source of other issues as runoff and low biodiversity and so on. So this is one of the focus that we need to have if we want to implement a broader sustainable beef production, and also thinking about the land use puzzle, the role that the cattle ranching can have in terms of providing land to other expansions, especially if you're looking for these degraded areas. If you see the numbers of areas expansion over the last years, cattle ranching is not expanding in terms of area, but it's like a kind of a moving towards the frontier. So this is an effect of already the agriculture and taking the cattle, the areas of pastures for production and so on. And so we did the work more specific in the Cerrado on the degraded pastures to understand a little bit what role degraded pastures can play in terms of this land use puzzle, and what we achieved. We did a lot of assessments about level of degradations, supporting La Pig's work, looking for carbon together with other partners, and also understanding the economics behind it. And we did a study with agroecon in the past, where based on the number that we have for the Cerrado, that you have 62 million hectares of pastures. Of these, 23 million is highly degraded. So we try to look, if you look at these 23 highly degraded areas, what are the solutions for them? So the first thing that we did is to identify what are the possible uses of this area. Not just looking for suitability, but looking for logistics, looking for the expansion of either commodities. So, and what we saw is that you do have 5.6 million hectares that could be used for intensification and production, 4.3 millions that could be used for dairy production, 4.9 that could be used for soy expansion, 3.8 for commercial forest, and 10.8 for integrated systems like live crop systems and cattle ranching and crop systems, forest and cattle systems, and so on. So this gives a sense that rehabilitating these pastures is important in terms of the land use puzzle, and it's feasible. Also, when you look for the economics behind it, how the numbers show that is economically feasible to rehabilitate pastures or to convert pastures to other crop. The main challenge is that if you have a credit available, this is easier and it's more profitable and it's more advanced. So the access to credit to rehabilitate pastures is important in terms of speeding up the process. And also, the other thing that you can see when you were talking about rehabilitation pastures is also a fact of the gains related to land value. So it's almost like there's a good land speculation where you're taking degraded land, making it like more productive, and based on that, you even go make like some profit, like, or your value of the land increases on that. I think that's a great alternative to cut off cerrado to plant soy and get the land speculation from the deforestation. So this is a little bit like I feel that part of the process in Brazil. But when you look specifically for deforestation, then you do see a big connection between the cattle and deforestation front, as I mentioned, because it's probably easier to use the land, like it's just the cattle can move around, so it's easy to move from one place to another. If you're talking about illegal areas, illegal deforestation, so on. So you're talking about 75% of deforestation in the Amazon being occupied by cattle and 62 from the Cerrado. So cattle keep being the front activity in the deforestation. Doesn't mean that's going to be the second that will be for a long time. Sometimes it's just like until the area is ready for other use. And this is like important to mention, like this, and also the connection, this connection between this kind of agriculture that is causing a lot of damage with the good agriculture. Because if you think about the impact of deforestation in terms of not just in the global perspective of climate change, but also in the regional perspective of climate change, as climate regulation, rains regulation, and so on. I think that one of the biggest impact that the deforestation have is exactly in the production systems in the center south of Brazil, in the ones that are more more technical with more technology. So I feel that we really need to look at this solution to exclude the worst of the supply chains. Okay? So this is a little bit like in a broader perspective, like the little bit of the issues on deforestation, conversion, the cattle ranching in Brazil, and the way that we are seeing as like technology to solve this is very much into what came already from our panelists here. One is we need to spread technology, technical assistance. We need to improve the production across the beef sector in Brazil. The other one is traceability. Like indirect suppliers is key. We need to to make a system where we can like split or segregate the worst productions from the best production, and making sure that we are like cleaning our supply chain in terms of the worst practice. The third is command and control. I think that is clear, like when you have like a political willingness to stop deforestation and conversion, it happens. I feel that we can see during this government that we are now, where like even with the challenges that we have, all the polarizations, the deforestation reduced in the Amazon, and also after some time in the Cerrado. And for that, I think that we are experimenting some interesting cases now, like as automatized system to command and control, like the automatic embargoed area or the GIS embargoed areas and things like that. I mean, there are technologies that are interesting to be used. The other element is, I feel that we're still missing on doing this is land tenure and the car validation. I think that like giving more quality to the land tenure, and also using the tool that we developed, that is the car, is important. Like if you consider, I feel that this government is working on it, but in the beginning of the government, we were talking about 48 million hectares of undesignated areas in the Amazon. So it's quite of like the areas that are exposed to illegality some way. And the other one is to look also for what has been considered legal deforestation. I think the permission to deforest, the ASV in Portuguese, is something that we are finding some issues around, especially around Cerrado on that. I think that was one of the things that from that has been a challenge to give like a criteria for these RCVs. I think that was important to us to look at this. And then we need to look for the two elements that I feel that are moving that are rural credit and investments, like market compliance and investments. I think that what we are seeing now globally is like there is a demand for DCF market for deforestation and conversion-free supply chain. I feel that like Europe, like with the UDR, like UK with the due diligence legislation is an example. But also, if you look like for China, that we thought, oh no, China is not like gonna move on the DCF agenda. They are the worst, like they are the laggards on that. We see some interesting moving from them, like and now willingness to buy DCF beef, like even companies there saying, look, yes, we want to buy this. How can we buy this DCF beef? Because can be imported. They can see how can we adapt that for the Chinese markets and so on. And so I think that this will be like in a nutshell, I think that what I can see as a view in terms of issues and solutions for the cattle ranching in Brazil. Thanks, Bruno.
Thank you so much, Edgar. So besides the stellar panel that we have here, we have a stellar audience as well. So I really want to welcome a lot of the people that I see here on my screen and without the video to raise their hands and ask questions and comments. I see people who have already participated in other of our events, people in the financing world, so points that they touched here. As you get like less shy to ask question, I will start with one. I have a question to Bernd Alexandre, who started and introduced us to those 3 pillars. Alexandre, you emphasized that efficiency reduce emission intensity through the adoption of technology, and then you introduced us very clearly the 3 pillars: fermentation manipulation, increasing production efficiency, and broadening carbon removal and compensation through practices like the integrated crop livestock forests, right? Fascinating. What do you see as the main bottlenecks preventing the widespread adoption of the 3 carbon balance pillars? Some of the speakers mentioned financing. Leonel was very successful in outlining the challenge to have the producer on the ground to implement those things and to put money up front. I'd love to hear your thoughts and other members of the audience on this.
That's a good point, Bruna, and I just noticed it that I have a message that I'm not able to share my screen now. Sorry for that. I don't know why. But this is really important. And what are the main reasons for farmers to adopt a technology or not? Of course, if the technology helps to improve their efficiency and productivity, as I mentioned, the pillar 2, it's a win-win situation that the farmers, they profit more. So it's, let's say, the marginal cost of the adoption of this technology is negative, or it is very interesting for the farmer. For other technologies, for example, like a specific additive developed to specifically reduce methane emission in the pillar 1, fermentation manipulation, sometimes it's a very expensive, or it costs a little bit, but it doesn't results in better performance. So the farmer doesn't see clearly the benefit, except if there is one industry like Marfrig or other incentive, what can be a public policy to incentivize the farmer to buy that option. But it is important that the additive is like we say, that the last technology, because there are other basic things to do in the production systems before you can enter a very precise and new developed technology like an additive. If the farmer is doing everything okay, is profiting, is performing well, then they can choose an additive. So I think there are different reasons for this adoption or not. But I agree that still in Brazil, there is a lot of space, room to improve our efficiency in general. And that's why technology transfer programs like Embrapa has, other institutions have, they are very important to give to convince farmers that those technologies really help them to profit more or to have a better familiar situation, can have a succession with son or daughter that is not very willing to keep the farming running. So there are a lot of interesting aspects that motivate farmers to adopt or not technologies. Thank you.
Thank you. If someone in the panel wants to address the question, feel free to.
Hi, Bruna.
jump.
Can I answer this question?
Of course.
Thank you so much for all the presenters. It was very great to hear from you all this information data presented. I'd like just to address a question for the three speakers, because we need to think about we are going to be in COP30 later this year, and there will be different policy makers, private companies, public companies all together discussing about sustainable ranching and how can we reduce the carbon footprint. So my way to think about that is considering beef to the whole process. I mean, from farm to fork, right? So my question is first to my colleague Alexandre Bernat. What else are we doing in terms of research beyond the finishing process of beef production or milk production or any other dairy products in farm? And to the other two presenters from Marfrig and also from Dorados, what kind of information data can we show also that to the audience in the COP30, for example, what else are we doing to compensate or to reduce the carbon footprint in the industry or in the restaurant segments of the beef chain? Thank you.
Thank you so much. Great question. Anyone want to address first? Go ahead.
I can say something about this issue. We understand that in the COP30 perspective, the communication will be important or very important thing to do. When you are talking about Brazil and all of the context that we have, as Alexandre Bernat mentioned before, we have a lot of producers, a lot of ranchers, a lot of areas that are totally according with all of the requirements that we can do, or some company or some NGO or whatever. Most of the producers in Brazil are fully compliant with any restrictive requesting that we have. But the problem sometimes is that we do not show this as our strength. We put light over the problem. I had one data from PPCDA that in the Amazon, I'm not saying that is something that is not important. I'm just putting some facts. In the Amazon, just 25% of the deforestation happened into the private areas. So we have implemented a system to check together with McDonald's and their policy to check the information about the producer, documents about their ownership of these farms, document from environmental agents to check this and to cross this to assure that that land that we are dealing with is totally according to the requirement and is free of deforestation and with no other problem like this. But it's just a small percentage of the total that we are talking about. So when we are talking about this perspective, maybe it's important that we highlight the producers that are doing the right things. This is one point. Another thing is about how we can reduce the emissions. We understand that the point here is not to reduce the emissions, because when we are talking about some guy that are with their integrated system between crop and forest, they are doing something that they are in the top of the reduction. They are being efficient. But most of the data, most of the protocols in terms of GHG emissions just talk about the emissions. They do not consider the remotions or the removals of the carbon. When we are talking about some guy that are high that adopted the high technology with good pasture, with good handling of the soil, yeah. So all of these contexts are being left because are not considering all of the removals of this. As Alexandre mentioned before, some producer with a lot of trees as the picture behind them. This guy can be an neutral carbon beef, but for most of the protocols that we need to show for or to check about the emissions, all of this environment is not considered. It's just considered the age of the cattle, the amount of GHG emitted by cattle. I'm not saying again that is not important to check and to be more efficient, but I'm just putting some point of view here that is important for us. Again, reinforcing what Bruna mentioned, that is a high level people that we are seeing in this screen. How we can help these discussions and connect not just the emissions, but the removals together. How we can put in evidence the good practices that are happening on the ground, not just the problems that we have. We know that we have problems. We are working to solve them, but it's important that we balance between the problems and the solutions, the evidence and the facts or the no facts about this, and the emissions and the removals. I think that this is the contribution that I can do for this question at this moment. Thank you.
Bruna, if I may continue to get back to Alexandre and building on what Jorel is saying, I think one of the key elements that is really important is the education of the consumer. As we work in this environment where scientific bodies are present, the suppliers are present, the NGOs are present, we must not forget that all of the buying decisions and purchasing decisions are made on the consumer side. So I think there is a real need to educate the consumer on a very simple and clear way that Dona Maria or Don Pedro in Rio de Janeiro, in Argentina, or in Paraguay or in Chile can actually understand what is being discussed. Because otherwise, this stays in a very high level discussion with very smart people that never reaches, the consumer. And that's where the balance skews. So if we have consumers that understand what the problem is and what is being done to solve these problems, that's when the balance will be regained. So I think we all have responsibility here to communicate better, educate the consumer, and also invest in the solutions. Not only from a communicational perspective, but also from a financial perspective. And what I mean with this is putting resources behind some of the solutions that we are advocating for and that we are deploying. And I mean with this, investing in biodiversity recovery, investing in, I know, Bruna, you mentioned there were some folks from the financial world in the conference today, there are various different financial elements or mechanisms where companies can actually make a commitment, work on those programs, and then, at the end of the day, realize the benefits of their work. And I mean with this, for instance, sustainability-linked bonds, where a company on the private sector goes out to the financial world requesting for some, financing of debt. And that's where the opportunity is to connect those commitments with financial commitments. So if you don't reach your targets or your commitments, then you have a penalty. So that's where also the private sector can contribute. And there are mechanisms and instruments and elements to contribute and be part of the solution. So I think each one of us has their own role, but we all need to find a way to communicate and educate the consumer at the end of the line, so the right purchasing decisions can be made with all of the context, the necessary context to understand what are we talking about. Because otherwise it remains extremely technical on a very, very remote and high level that nobody can actually connect. So I think that's key element that we all need to be part of that discussion, and COP30 also presents that opportunity. Even though COP30 is focused on nations negotiating certain agreements, etc. All of those agreements, then they end up in the economical model of the countries, which is driven by consumption and the consumers are in their life. So that's where I think we all need to connect the dots.
Fantastic. I think Alexandre Berndt wants to address Alexandre's question. Go ahead, Berndt.
Okay, Julia, thank you. I will just show one picture here. I hope now you can see my screen. Can you see a cow with...
Yeah.
Yes. So from the science side, we need to bring numbers to that discussion on financing or not, technology or a project. And Alexandre Varela is correct that we should not look only on the finishing and the fattening phase of the production cycle. We need to measure, especially in this screen, we can see the cow-calf pair or group, and the cow, the system with cows is very important because it stays alone in the system, and we need to address these and study. This is a device that we use to collect methane emissions from the animals. So we have trials from definitely from very young animals, young dairy young animals here, females, that are we need to study when the methane emission starts. This is a 30 days life picture with animals still having milk, and this one is from last week. Is a project running in this moment here at our research center. Animals with 90 days that doesn't drink milk anymore, they are grazing, and now they are starting to produce methane. And we've been following this maturation of the rumen in this trial. And we want to understand when is the most effective moment to start with any technology we can use, prebiotics or other induction in the rumen to make more favorable the microbiome to produce less methane. But not only with beef and dairy, we have a lot of trials with goats and sheep and buffaloes and other species, because they also contribute in the animal food supply chain, of course, in less economic importance, but from the social aspect, a lot of communities depend on these kind of animals and this kind of production. So we also pay attention on these other small species. So we need to evaluate all the chain, I should say. Thank you, Varela, for the question.
Thank you, Alexandre. Francisco and then Colleen, and thank you both for being here.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. It's a pleasure to be here with such a group of colleagues. It's not a question, it's more a comment to your question, Bruna, because you asked what are the barriers for producers to adopt all these techniques that we are talking about. And I think that one that is very, very important, and I think that Leonel touched base on this, is technical assistance. This is fundamental if we want to spread all over Brazil the techniques. And as Edgar said, it is not a binary decision. It is not, I mean, you cannot say, oh, this is good and this is not good. We need to recognize we have good producers in one aspect, but at the same time they are not good in other aspects, and this is, I mean, a gradation of gray that we need to try to make groups and give them the necessary technical assistance so they can make progress. Another aspect that some people here touch based on that I think it is really important is traceability and monitoring of the results. And we need to make this something key to our next steps. And as far as I understood, this will be the theme for the next meeting. So I think that we need to make the link between this meeting and the next one and so on. But in terms of traceability, more than work on individual animal traceability and monitoring, that is something that Brazil is putting a lot of effort on. I think that we also need to use the tools and the databases that we already have nowadays to make progress while developing this new path on individual animal traceability. And in the end, we also need to always have a door for producers coming back to what we call legal production or sustainable production or whatever. But we cannot exclude them, just exclude them from the production system. We also we always need to have this backdoor where they can come back to this new way of produce cattle in Brazil, so we don't have a parallel market or a black market. These were my comments. Thank you.
Excellent comments, Francisco, and thank you for being here with us. Colleen, over to you, and again, thank you. It's great to have the task force, the governor's task force represented here.
Thanks, Bruna, and thank you all. I am relatively new to this cattle intensification space. I'm a cultural anthropologist, but I work with governments across the Amazon region, subnational governments. And a number of you have, I think it was Leonel talked about how a lot of only 25% of deforestation is happening on private lands. So I have a question, how much is happening on state lands? And similar to other comments from Gabriel, and as we just heard from Francisco, what does it look like to work with governors and secretaries of the environment? Where are the barriers that you're encountering right now? And how can the task force help with that? What policies do you need? What practices do you need? I wanted to let you all know we have a new forest economy plan that was launched about a year ago and then kind of relaunched or rebrought up at our recent annual meeting in Rio Branco just a month ago. And one of the 4 pillars is production intensification. So we've got governors who are signing on to this saying, we want to do the right thing, but I need to hear from you all. What does the right thing look like at the subnational level? What are the policies and practices and barriers? Just, it's a huge question, I know, but let's start having this conversation.
It's a great question and pose a great opportunity for us to talk about the subnational level of government. So any of our speakers want to address that, just open your mic.
So let me share the data. Please, could you allow me to share the slide? So it's just to mention the number that I mentioned before. Okay. Please, could you say if you are seeing my screen? Okay, so this number from PPCDM, the data is from 2023 to 2027 is the perspective that they have, but the numbers is up to 2023. Yep. This is the official data from them, and the same data is in the ABIEC report the last year as well. ABIEC is the Brazilian Exporter Industry Association, and this data is replaced there as well. So the number that we have is 25% of the deforestation in the Amazon is under a private area. The other one is in different areas, in different territories, 2% in indigenous territories, 33% in the rural settlements, 12% in the conservation units, and 28% non-allocated public lands. So this is something that most of the times we do not show in this perspective. When we are talking about the producers, mainly in our supply chain that we are dealing, I'm not saying that all of the companies do the same. I know that is not the reality, but companies that are implementing systems or implementing protocols with non-deforestation policies, we are talking about the private areas where we check the documentation, the information about them. So this is the data that I mentioned before and the source about them. Let me stop here to see you again. About the other points in terms of how we can implement. I agree with Francisco Beduschi. One of the tools is traceability for all of the area, for all of the sector. And even for this, it's important that I'm saying every time these words. It's important that we, at this moment, maybe is not to rise the bar, but is to spread the bar, to put the same rules, but for the most of the companies, most of the stakeholders, most of the producer, most of the governments, even subnational, to establish the same standard. Once we achieve this, we move forward and we rise the bar. So it's important that we achieve the isonomy in terms of the rules, in terms of the criteria that we are dealing with. Because if not, we are with a zero movement. It's a opposed force. Yeah. So this is maybe the contribution that we can start doing, establishing protocols or traceability protocols for all of the supply chain, establishing what is the basal standard that we can achieve, and after this we increase. I'm not saying again that is something that companies or private sector can't do more, but it's important that even these companies decide to do more, we have a level, a basal level, in a way that we have competitiveness for all of the sectors. Because if not, probably a small group will move this bar up and the other one just will achieve the benefits from those restrictions and do not do nothing.
If I may, Bruna, just to complement and get back to Colleen with her question, I think it's a very good question, Colleen, and it opens up doors for collaboration. Because in our views, sometimes governments operate in a little bit of an isolation kind of mode without all of the context and with all of the information necessary to make the right decisions. We've seen this in other types of regulations across other countries in the region. And that's where I think the private sector can actually help governments to, normalize the discussion as to what are the real and actual possibilities of certain regulations being discussed and what are, the consequences of the same regulations being deployed in various different, places in the society. So I think it's critical that governments actually rely on the private sector to participate in the discussions and actually allow the space for deploying the solutions and not only act as a authority to validate yes or no, but pave the way for the private sector to actually participate in the development of the solutions and trust the private sector to deploy the solutions.
Edgar, please.
No,
Thank you,
thanks.
Gabriel.
No, if it is a good question about the role of the state on this agenda, and I think that they can do like amazing things. Like I feel that like they can have like a public policies, but more tuned to what's happening on the ground. They can look to the challenges in like a much like a big lens in terms of that. You have great examples of what Pará did in terms of fighting the first state, in terms of developing a traceability system. I kind of agree with Gabriel too that like the state can be a enabler to the private sector, implementing their commitments and somehow. I feel that there is a lot of things that the state can do. The challenge that I see, the biggest challenge is like it's very much more exposed to the polarization and to the pressure from farmers or from part of the sector that want to keep the things as they are with a low traceability and so on. So sometimes we see states that want to be more proactive, want to take a step further, but like the pressure from the like not well intended like a players is sometimes pushing them to not do what is needed. So that's also something that I feel it's like I feel that what Leonel showed that's true is like the problem is contained to a small part of the sector. Like if you take the biggest part of the sector, it's not like where the problem is. Like how can we recognize this problem? How can the sector recognize this problem and work to stop it? Because nowadays sometimes you do have at the same time that you have a lot of things moving further and getting traction, you still have these guys being defended by like some other interest beyond the interest of even the supply chain, I would say, like or other has been used to defend other interests, I would say.
That's a great point. You want to follow up, Francisco? Then after that, I will have to wrap up.
Yes, if I can, very quickly.
Of course.
Thank you. So just bringing our perspective here in terms of state government or subnational governments, their role. I completely agree with Edgar. They are much more sensitive to producers' opinion, mainly in states like Mato Grosso, where I live, Pará State, Rondônia, etc. So we need to find the right balance to demand the information that we need from the government to enable traceability and monitoring so the private sector can do what they need to do. but at the same time, educate producers about market and market demands. So what we most hear when we go to the field is that, oh, UDR is just about blocking Brazilian production and that's all. And we don't see this way. So we need an educational process with producers and also help the governments, the state governments, to find a balance in between make the necessary information transparent enough, but not too much that bring issues with the data protection, for example. So the individual information needs to be protected as the law demands in Brazil. And also we need to consider, last but not least, the aspect of what is legal to do in Brazil and what are the market demands and how we can find enough stimulus or a way to stimulate producers to go beyond the law demands here in Brazil. Thank you.
Thank you, Francisco. And thanks, everyone. Once again, more than 1 hour for your attention span. I'm really grateful. It was a fantastic roundtable, really, really rich. We have, as I said, a stellar group of people here that I will be following up with. Soon, you get an email from me with the readout of this session and our next steps. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.